Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk self-care, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of Alignful.com. As always, thank you for tuning in. So we're starting this episode. The topic is growth, and I decided to start the podcast with this episode because truly I have and am in the middle of a growth period. And I decided that starting something new while already at a crossroads in my life is actually a good idea. I already don't feel comfortable, and as you may or may not know, that is often the case when you're in a growth period. So I'm leaning into this discomfort and really allowing myself to experience it. When we're at a crossroads, it can be a really good time to try new things as we are releasing an old part of ourselves. And with that, we're making space for a new part of ourselves. So with that stepping in and releasing, let's unpack that a little bit. So am I releasing pieces of myself? Not physically, perhaps, but emotionally, I definitely am. And I think we all can relate to this feeling of discomfort that shows up in our lives when we step into something new. And releasing is part of new, right? We can't carry our baggage and the baggage of our entire past, our entire history with us if we're wanting to evolve into the next version of ourselves. And that's what's so uncomfortable in that growth is we have to let go and release what we know. We love knowing, right? We're comfortable with a certain identity. We're comfortable with who we think we are in the moment and what we think we know. And we say what we think we know because we're always evolving. Life is always changing. And what we know or believe to know about ourselves in this moment can also change at any given moment. For example, you may think that you love or hate a certain food. For example, Brussels sprouts. That's an easy one. A lot of people tell me, oh, I hate Brussels sprouts. Well, have you had them baked until they're crispy and caramelized with bacon? If you eat bacon? Yeah, that tends to change a lot of people's opinions. And so they thought that they were someone who doesn't like Brussels sprouts. And then this new information was introduced and they realized, wow, it's not that I didn't like Brussels sprouts. It's that I had never had them in a way that I liked. And that is the case with life. We think that we are a certain person. And a lot of times it takes new experiences, bad or good, that introduce us to another version of ourselves. And that's what it means to grow. That's what it means to evolve, is to be open and not overly attached to who you think you are. It's a releasing of identity, a releasing of connection to not just who you think you are, but who others think you are. In fact, when we're in a growth period, when we're in a time of transition and change and evolution, one of the most difficult things that people experience is actually the conflict between who they are becoming and who other people want them to be. So you may feel that you are evolving into another version of yourself, but your friends and maybe your family, they're not okay with that because they might not be on the same path to change that you are. And so they end up actually trying to keep you where you were. And that's fine. We're not going to blame them for that. They're on a different path, but it's up to you to really hold your own and step into that version of yourself, knowing that friends and family they'll either show up for you and come around or they'll fade away. And yes, that can be painful. And that is part of the releasing. You don't have to send them away, but it will naturally happen as you evolve, your interests evolve. And if theirs don't, then that is just part of the path. I imagine you're probably not still friends with some people that you had in elementary school, middle school, high school, certainly college, right? Each phase of our lives actually brings with it new people, new lessons, new experiences. So it's okay. I think as we get older, it does become a little more difficult to let go because we're afraid, right? We get more cemented in who we think we are, who society says we are. So just know that that is part of this growth path. It is part of what feels uncomfortable, and it is also okay. Now, the main reason I wanted to talk about comfort in this episode is that one thing that comes up when we talk about comfort, right? I'm using the words comfortable and uncomfortable, and I'm using it in this connection with growth and evolution and change. Think about something as simple as the concept of comfort food. I posted about this recently. Grilled cheese sandwiches, macaroni and cheese, those are definitely comfort foods of mine. Soups are comfort foods. And why? Why are they comfort foods? Because they help me feel calm, and they remind me of a time when that really helped calm me down, right? At some point, a grilled cheese sandwich meant something particular to me, maybe when I was a child, and it was, this treat at the end of the day with my mom. Or with macaroni and cheese, that was definitely a meal that our family had almost every single week, and I just loved it. Family sits around at the table, we all eat together, we talk about our day. Yes, this really happened. And that felt safe to me. So as I've gotten older, as I've become an adult, and there's more unknowns, when that happens, when I come up to that wall of, oh God, I feel so uncomfortable and I want to retreat, what I do and can retreat to is comfort foods. And for me personally, it is a way to help me feel safe and connected and like everything is going to be okay. I get great joy and calmness from the process and the experience of cooking. So that's an example of a comfort that I can turn to. Now, it's a positive example. Here's the deal, especially when thinking of evolution, we all have habits, right? So I just shared one that I still resonate with, a habit, a comfort that helps me with difficult times. However, that's one of many that no longer comfort me. So think about habits that we've had as a kid. Think again, sucking your thumb, right? Do you do that anymore? Probably not. As a kid, was it really helpful? Yeah, but did your mom make you stop? Yeah. So as we're evolving, right, certain habits have to kind of slide away because they are no longer serving us. And what I find that is so interesting in the past couple years, I've had some really distinct growth periods. I'm in one right now, which is why we're in this episode, but it's very distinct for me as an adult in what I'm experiencing. And it goes something like this. Dana is in a growth period. Dana is making steps in a new direction that she doesn't know there's a guaranteed outcome for. Then I start to recognize that this feels really uncomfortable, and so I want some sense of comfort. Then I turn to something that used to comfort me, and it doesn't work. And not only does it not comfort me, but all of a sudden it doesn't feel good at all, and I become more uncomfortable. And it's so sad. I recognize this. I've had this conversation with a few people because something that you knew so well that you identified with and loved. I'm going to use food again because these are really simple examples for me. I used to go to a movie with my mom and we would get a giant Coke and popcorn. Now, maybe you guys still have this. It's a delicious combo, but in the past, 4 or 5 years, I've made lots and lots of changes to the way I eat and my relationship with food, how I engage with it. And one thing that I've found is popcorn and a Coke, certainly popcorn from a movie theater with the fake butter. Oh my God, it just tastes horrible. And I don't feel good afterward. It really feels horrible. So if I turn to that, I turn to it with the nostalgia of the joy it once brought to me. And then within and after the experience of it, I feel worse. And that is one way to tell that you're in a growth period, is that something that used to feel so good and bring you joy no longer does. And all of a sudden, your comfort kit, right, the things that you go to, you turn to when you need to feel calm and safe and connected, it doesn't work. And that leads you feeling, frankly, more uncomfortable, more out of place, more like, what the heck am I doing? If popcorn and Coke doesn't even taste good, if I can't even zone out with a movie, what am I going to do? And my answer for you is first recognize that the thing that you used to do isn't serving you. And it's okay to feel sadness. It's okay to feel in that letting go a sense of longing, right? Missing, it's like the simpler times when you could be mindless with, how you consumed, whether it's food or TV or people, and it didn't affect you. And now it does, and that's okay. So allow yourself to recognize that it's not serving you and to let it go and to feel the sadness that might come with that. And then you start to step back. So this is maybe a more challenging part, especially if you're already feeling uncomfortable, you're grasping for something that makes you feel better and it's not working. So you recognize the sadness and then step back and ask yourself, why isn't this working? And in the simple example of popcorn, well, I don't eat that fake butter anymore, so it gives me a stomachache. I don't consume the amount of sugar that's in a Coke, so, it gives me a headache. That's a pretty straightforward example, right? But what about something like trauma or gossip? Do you experience that? I definitely used to get a bit of a high from gossip, right? You talk about other people and it's like, oh man, they're really screwing their lives up. And you kind of feel good about yourself because like, oh, well, you're better than them, right? And oh my God, when gossip happens around me anymore, or sometimes I engage in it by intentionally, let me be honest, intentionally thinking it's going to serve me, afterward, I feel horrible. I feel horrible. Just this sinking feeling in my body. And that's another example. So we have the physical, right? Physical feelings of, say, eating a food that doesn't serve you anymore, that used to. And then there's the other, physical, metaphysical sensations in your body, emotional responses to something that's not serving you. That's how you can tell. If you get a sinking feeling in your gut, in your heart, if you feel kind of sad after something, that's your body communicating with you also that this isn't serving you. And what do I mean by serving you? I mean that it is not in alignment with the direction that you are moving toward in your growth period. That is maybe in alignment with the previous version of yourself, right? I like to joke your version, 3.0, right? We keep upgrading ourselves. So that may be in alignment in frequency with the old version of yourself, right? It used to work. But now as you're up leveling, as you're evolving, that thing isn't in alignment. It's not a vibrational match. So you'll feel a symptom. So keep an eye out for that. And again, recognize it. Here's the deal. If something that was serving you, you recognize that it no longer is, and you continue to do it, based on what we just talked about, you're not a vibrational match, that thing will actually start to bring you back down. And it's fascinating because as humans, we like to know, right? We like to know our place. We like to feel comfortable. Our brains desperately want us to be safe, right? That's our brain's main job. But as spiritual beings, right, we desperately want to evolve and grow. But when there's a conflict between where you're going and where you're coming from, J-Lo reference here, one is going to win. And so that's why I'm saying here, you have to pause and recognize that something isn't serving you. Feel that, allow it, and then be willing to let it go. Because if you don't, you'll stop the process. Not immediately, right? It's not like you hit the brakes and you immediately stop growing. No, but the direction you're going that isn't congruent with this old version of you, this old comfort food, comfort habit, that's going to win over. And then you'll be back in your comfort zone. Well, the comfort zone, it's comfortable when it feels safe, right? But eventually that comfort turns into complacency, right? We atrophy our growth muscles and we don't want that. So the more we do that, the more we actually prevent and limit our own growth. If we're feeling stuck, if we're feeling we're not growing, that's when you want to look at, what are my comforts that I'm not quite willing to step away from? Our comfort zone, how many quotes do we hear about our comfort zone? Is your growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone. It's true, right? But the fact is that it's up to us to push the boundaries to end up at the edge of our comfort zone and then be willing to step through. If we're not willing to step through, then we live in the comfort zone. But here's the cool thing. We all have a comfort zone. We all have our comfort habits and foods and all the happy comfort things, right, that live in there. It's like a big cushy pillow party. So delicious and lovely. But when we are in a growth period, a growth spurt, think about kids when they start to grow. At first, it's really uncomfortable. Like you're achy, your muscles are growing, you're uncomfortable, you feel awkward, nothing quite is aligning and you feel out of place. And then you grow into yourself. And at the edge of that comfort zone during your growth period, when you're able to start releasing your old comforts and sit in the discomfort, let go, recognize what's happening, that edge becomes an expansion of your comfort zone. So it starts to grow. And then it's like, okay, now I'm feeling a little more comfortable. You start to settle into that. You start to move into and discover new habits, new foods, new things, new people, new practices that feel more comfortable in this new growth, this new version of yourself, this new zone. You hang out there for a little bit, right? And then you hit another growth period and then it's uncomfortable. But as you can see in the picture I'm painting, you keep expanding your comfort zone. So while we're often in growth periods feeling uncomfortable, we're also growing what our comforts are. As we release the old things that don't serve us, we make space for the new things that do. For example, in this growth period, have one of the things I turn to absolutely is TV shows and kind of silly TV shows and wine. Well, interestingly, recently at the edge of this growth period, I pour a glass of wine, I drink it, and I'm like, it's not doing the trick. It doesn't taste quite like I want it to taste. And the feeling I get from having a glass of wine isn't really, I'm not enjoying it. And I did enjoy, and I mean, in my mind, I do enjoy having a glass of wine. But sitting down with a glass of wine and watching Netflix is not satisfying me the way it has in my recent past. So I have to look at that and recognize that something's not serving me. So what's the solution? Well, consuming less wine. Oh my gosh, I've been drinking these Spindrift soda waters. They are the best thing ever. They have real fruit juice, but just a tiny bit. It's like 1 gram of sugar. Soda water. They're refreshing. They're tasty and delicious. Been having those instead. And instead of watching a bunch of Netflix, I'm reading more, right? I'm meditating. I'm staring at the wall, playing with my cat. I'm exploring what other habits, what other practices are serving me and feel more aligned than my go-to, which is wine and Netflix. Does it mean I'll never drink wine or never watch Netflix again? Of course not. But it means that I'm recognizing in my growth period that these things aren't serving me. So I scale back and I lean into the things that are serving me. And how do I know if they're serving me? It feels good. It feels in alignment. I feel at ease. I feel at peace. I feel connected when I'm doing it. So remember that it's a process. We're all growing all the time. But when you're in a really strong growth period, it's really time to tune in to yourself, to start to pay attention to how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and just ask yourself questions. So we'll remember that when we're in a growth period, we'll want to turn to our old comforts. And what we'll find is many of those don't actually comfort us the way they used to. When you notice that, recognize that it's happening, ask yourself why, and then be willing to let go. And in the letting go, recognize that letting go is actually making space for something new. New habit, new formation, new growth in your body, both physically and spiritually. And that it's okay that you mourn or feel a sadness for what you knew, what was lost. And know that may be friends, it may be conversations, it may be things that you knew really well. They may go away for some time. And then recognize that when you make space, you'll find that naturally new things are in alignment with your growth-oriented vibration. They're pulling you up forward versus holding you back. If you don't let go, if you're not willing to step into the growth, that's fine. You may not be ready yet. But know that the longer you hold on, the more stuck you become. And you will feel that resistance in you because your body, your spirit truly, truly wants to grow. So thank you all for joining me. I hope this resonated. I hope this is something that you can connect with and really apply when you're in the next growth period. In fact, maybe you're in there right now. And I hope you can apply these tools and look at yourself and look at where you are in life, not with judgment or criticism or fear, but with some compassion, with a sense of knowing that truly you're expanding your own capabilities and you're moving and growing into a new version of yourself. And while it may be uncomfortable right now, know that it is truly something that you want at a higher level and that is serving you ultimately. So we'll start to become more comfortable in these periods of discomfort, in these times of growth, and ultimately know that we're moving and flowing and growing as people, as individuals, as spirits, and we're all here for each other. So please share this if it resonates with you, and I'd love to hear how you process and deal when you're in a growth period. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.